So I cannot emphasize enough that Book 4 is absolutely key for what we're doing in this class. Why do I say that? Because this is a class in the philosophy of human nature, and it is in Book 4 that finally, perhaps, uh, Socrates reveals his theory of human nature. It's all here. The first part of the book, Book 4, is taken up with some other things, concerns, which perhaps I'll get around to talking about in some video or another. But it's in the latter part of it that Socrates actually reveals, describes his theory of human nature. And it's absolutely key that you understand this. And what is the most important thing about it? The most important thing about it is that Plato's theory of the individual self, his theory of human nature, is based upon the class structure of his imaginary city. Um, the imaginary city has three social classes: the individual soul or self, but it's the word soul that he actually, I think, is closer to what he actually uses, has three parts. So the three parts of the city correspond to the three parts of the self. That's the theory of human nature. And what are those three parts of the self that are based upon the three parts of the city? Well, we see that there are two major classes of the city. One is the top class, the guardians, the ones who actually rule the city. The other major part is the bottom part. What does he call them? Well, I forget what he calls them. The ordinary people, um, the people who work, the people who have ordinary lives and sort of just live their lives. Um, they're really the pleasure seekers, or the people who live their lives for material satisfaction. And what's important is that they are ruled by an elite class of people that he calls the guardians. Those guardians, uh, as it turns out, we find out in the next book, are actually philosophers, but that leads us into different areas. But the most important thing is that they are the thinkers. They are the most talented people, and that they are intellectuals. Now, there's a third class that's sort of the in between class. There's the guardians, um, they're the ordinary people, and then there are the auxiliaries, who are the guardians' helpers. These correspond to the three parts of the soul: the rational part, which is like the guardians; the desires, which is like the money makers, which I think is what they're actually called, the ordinary people; and then in between, there's something called the spirited part, and they correspond to the auxiliary guardians. The auxiliaries are the ones who actually carry out the orders of the guardians. So this is incredibly important. It's all here in Book 4, but it's incredibly important to get this down. That is, that the three parts of the self, the ordinary or the individual, correspond to the three parts of the city, and it's quite important how these things are arranged. And I'll do one more video on that. But I can't emphasize enough that this basic structure of the city and the basic structure of the individual soul, that has to be understood in order to understand Plato. And to see that the three parts of the soul are based upon the three parts of the city is absolutely key.